Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Tumbly Drunk, at tonight at episode 225. We're gonna be talking Overwatch League. It is the off-season. Kind of hard to say whether or not we have officially entered the F5 season, as announcements have been kind of like scattered throughout the weekly cycles here as of late. But the plan for tonight is to talk about what has been going on in regards to off-season movement, specifically when it comes to the Overwatch League Pacific Conference. So we'll be going over half of the league teams tonight. On our next episode, we'll be going through the Atlantic Conference, and then should there be any other Pacific news, maybe we'll circle back to that. Before we deep dive into that. But we got a lot of information. We have player contract statuses, which helped painted a more clear picture before we started to dive into this. And we have seen a number of free agents being signed to new teams as well. So,
It's been fun.
yep. So before we get into that and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show, and of course thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So as you can tell, joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host Edinar. And Ed, it's been a quiet week on the Overwatch front. I know we've kind of been on like a bi-weekly recording, so there have been a couple of things that we have missed here. We did have the release of the second Tracer London Call-In comic that came out on the Overwatch website, which, as we kind of had aforementioned, was going to bring us kind of back to the forefront of the Mondada assassination by Widow, and we kind of got a little bit of a fall off there between Iggy and Tracer, since Tracer, moved out of the way, and of course, that shot ended up being fatal to Mondada, and Iggy's just standing there being like, "What? Why would she do that?" And continue to build off of that divide after we were introduced to
Mhm.
Casey, who was this Omnic who just has no trust at all with the humans. So we had that. Obviously, we have the Halloween event, which is I think it's the second week still technically. Maybe it's the third week. I don't know.
Third week.
It's the third week. Okay, so we got new
Yep.
weekly challenges, which also means we got new um the new like 9 wins for whatever the skin is for this week. You also have the new challenges for Junkenstein's Revenge, which has been unlocking basically 2 new ones per week, which is another way for players to accrue additional Halloween Terror boxes. But outside of that, the, not a whole lot else going on. We had an experimental card this past week that came and went that kind of buffed a little bit of base health for some of the heroes out there. I didn't have a chance to check that out, but really, our focus tonight is on the Overwatch League. And just what the hell is going on? Because we've seen a pretty interesting divide here so far, where we see teams doing one of two things. We see teams that are throwing out heavy money in hopes of, I don't know, righting the ship back. Not that it was actually in the right spot in the first place, or, a team just trying to build that type of dynasty, or you do see other teams out there who are basically starting from the ground up yet again, potentially going a budget direction. Maybe not, but like right now, knowing that we haven't seen enough sign-ins, it's kind of hard to tell where some of these teams are going to sit, so we don't know if there is actually a middle ground as of yet.
Yeah, I mean, we can take stabs at some of them. Some of them are easy now, like you know, um, Shanghai for one, basically kept their whole starting lineup again.
Hmm.
Um, we know what Dallas is going to do because they've basically signed everyone. Um, the Hanzo Spark are probably up there with they probably don't have that many question marks. Um, but yeah, it's some of these teams have 2-3 people signed, and it's the same thing that we went through last offseason.
Mhm.
So it's just pure chaos at this point. And the thing is the majority of people in like the league know where everyone's going or stuff like that. It's just they're working on contract details.
Right. And it is worth noting here, a couple weeks back, we did get that spreadsheet for the 2021 player contract statuses, which, this is information that all of the teams had on hand already. But basically, what this did is it would let us know basically which players were signed to their current team for the 2021 season. It will let us know whether or not the team has an option to extend for this next season, whether or not their team option had been declined, which would make them a free agent, whether their contract was expiring, or whether they were like mutually released from their existing contract. So you had a few different like levels of free agency as well as contract statuses here as a whole. So I know initially there were a couple of announcements, and, people love to speculate. And, I kind of held off a little bit just because, for one, we were still waiting on the contract statuses. And, we're entering this phase here where for, the next several months, there's going to be a ton of speculation anyway. So, like, waiting until we had a little bit more information wasn't that big of a deal. So we've seen a lot of resources out there. So we got the contract status spreadsheet. We've also seen an off-season tracker appearing, whether you are using the one over on the competitive Overwatch Reddit or the one that is on the Overwatch League website, which isn't quite up to date. I don't know who's been in charge of that one in particular. So if you want like the most recent updates, the one on the subreddit is actually better than the one on the Overwatch League website. And, I can't say I'm too surprised by that, just because, there's been a lot of stuff going on with the Overwatch League website. They've been pushing a lot of contender stuff here as of late, with the introduction of contender skins to Overwatch. I seem to recall, a certain someone saying, like, that was never going to happen, like, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, and then, lo and behold, they actually have a system in place where if you watch contenders for X amount of hours, you actually get to unlock contender skins in games. So, it's about effing time we saw a little bit of support tier 2 outside of the thirst trap crap that was happening, a couple of months back.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that they're showing some love, but I think they realized that their whole tier 2 scene was crumbling, and they weren't going to be able to feed people into the Overwatch League if they had no tier 2 scene. So now they're like, okay, well, shit. Contenders didn't work out as we had planned. Time to change things up a little bit.
Well, I think, too, with, like, the free agency window opening up, there are going to be a lot of people who I feel like will actually start to have piqued interest in watching Tier 2 to kind of get an outlook on what some of the potential sign-ins could be. And, that might not be someone who's going to be tuning in on a weekly basis. Maybe it's going to be someone who has only really paid attention when Contenders is actually getting into, like, the playoff picture. But, for the most part, I think the most intrigue with Tier 2 right now, based off of, what's been going on with London in particular, which, we haven't really touched up on, and that will be in our next episode, but there's a lot of eyes on the British Hurricane, which is the London Spitfire Academy team in particular, as they have been just run-shotting through all of EU and have been for us basically like the entirety of the year. And there's a lot of rumors that we could see quite a few call-ups from their academy team making the main roster as they shift to a more EU-based roster for the London Spitfire. But either way, it's been really awesome just seeing viewership numbers doing pretty well for contenders. So it seems like this ploy, the skins or just the general like curiosity of potential sign-ins is being pushed to the forefront here, and it's paying off so far. So really awesome to see.
Yeah, I think I actually even saw it. It was over 10K at one point. So yeah, that is actually really cool to see. And it is starting to pay off a little bit. We'll see if it holds up, but because I mean, if you don't keep adding contender skins, people aren't going to stay there.
I think they were gonna be adding basically like 2 per season.
Okay, yeah, then
Like
you'll continue to get viewership.
Yeah, so they already kind of thought ahead on that front. But anyways, let's talk about the Overwatch League. So we're going to be taking a look at the Pacific Conference teams. And I figured, let's start with 2 of the Pacific teams that were in the grand finals. I think that would probably make the most sense because at the end of the season, they were the top 2 teams. So let's start with our back-to-back champions of the San Francisco Shock. All right, so we got a couple of unknowns right now when it comes to contracts that are set to expire here shortly, and that is with Super, Moth, and Violet. So far, only one player has gone to free agency, that being Rascal, who has not found a new team as of yet. But currently on this roster, we have Ons, Striker, and Talio for the DPS. You have Troyobin, or Golden Boy Troy, whatever moniker you want to give him, and Smurf as your tank line, with Twilight currently being the sole support at this given point in time. Now, Super was just on Jimmy Fallon again, touting, their championship win, potentially like building a dynasty and, maybe being mentioned in the same breath as like some other sports teams out there. Super's a very marketable guy, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Moth, who has really kind of been the centerpiece of this team since day one. And, looking back this past season, when we were looking at the flex support line, or really just the support line in general, we're just like, wait, they have Violet and Twilight? Like, how is this even fair to the other teams? So it kind of created this odd situation where for, a majority of the time, we actually weren't seeing Twilight at all. And now all of a sudden, we could potentially be seeing a little bit of a role reversal where it's Violet on the outside looking in. So when we're looking at these contracts that are due up here soon, what are you expecting to see out of the Shock side? Are they going to part ways with Moth? Because Moth would be an absolutely monster get for a number of teams out there. And Super does kind of strike me as someone who would want to prove himself like in another location to bring up, a team's level.
So I think it's almost a no-brainer to bring back Moth. I think that's, fairly certain to happen. The only way it doesn't happen is if Moth requests way too much money.
Mm-hmm.
Super, see, here's the thing with Super. You are not a flexible main tank. So no matter what team you go to, if it's not your meta, then you're not going to play. I think your best bet is to stay with the Shock, become more of the face of the league in North America, and stick it out with the Shock. Because one, the Shock don't want you to leave because you're the face of their team. So you're probably going to get your best deal from them. So, and it's not like NRG, like the Shock don't have the money, because let's be real, they're the most profitable team probably. Like, they've brought in the most money from winning.
Mm-hmm.
out of anyone in the league. So, like, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they brought all three of them back.
Yeah, and like this hasn't really been a team that's been shuffling around a lot of pieces either. They kind of they kind of remind me of like when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. There were a lot of players on that team who were actually willing to take like a pay cut in order to, keep their numbers in line. Like below the cap, so they weren't having to let anyone go or trade people off. And I have a feeling like this team is going to be sticking together. It's Rascal, unfortunately, like this is someone who has basically like looked good like any time he's actually been seen in playtime. It's just unfortunate that he just kind of gets overshadowed because there's not really a ton of projectile a lot of times in, the ongoing metas that we have seen. And I was like that for quite some time this season, so they kind of moved away from, the season prior, where they had basically like two split DPS teams based off of whatever the map archetype was, to now having a more situated duo, basically on like a map-to-map basis where, they were getting the brunt of the work. So Rascal was constantly just riding the bench this year. We didn't really get to see Tayo at all either. So, we'll see whether or not he'll be seen to the stage at all in 2021. But, either way, like, the Shock are going to be a nasty team going into the new season. And, like for me, I want to see, is there going to be a similar signing to Ons where a lot of people outright question Krusty again, like they did when Ons was signed to the team? Because, I remember vividly back then, they did like the whole Widowmaker montage for Ons and his sign-in, and everyone's like, do they need a Widow? Like, they don't need him. And then here we are entering the playoffs. We have double hit scan. And, yeah, Ons was kind of an important piece there along with Striker.
Yes. So, yeah, don't doubt Krusty. Just don't.
In Krusty, we trusty. That's all you need to know. All right, well, let's talk about the Dynasty, Ed. Let's talk about the knowns, and then I'll have you go over the unknowns right now in regards to the contracts. So, currently signed to this team, we know we have Creative, Fitz, Marvel, Prophet, and Gesture returning for 2021. And gone from the roster are Tuyu, who was on a two-way contract. And then they also got rid of Bedosian and Toby. So the Lunatic High core has completely dissolved going into 2021.
Well, it was the end of an era. But then there's the three we don't know about, and that's Illicit, Michelle, and Slime. So, I don't... You see them bringing any of them back?
There's one name on here in particular that I feel like is a definite no. And that's Illicit. You're looking at this lineup so far. They don't currently have an off-tank unless they're, still running like these Sigma compositions. And they don't have a main support because they let go of Toby. So, like, I do feel like they will bring back Michelle and Slime for this team. Or maybe we will see more call-ups from Gen G Esports over in Contenders Korea. It's been a while since I've actually followed that team, so I don't know what
if they're any good,
how they've been faring, or like what the eligibility of the players are at this given point in time. But like for me, I think the biggest thing was obviously Gesture and Prophet are essentially going to be the core of this team moving forward. Fitz definitely had an amazing playoffs. And Creative, I think, proved a lot of his naysayers wrong with his Ana performances. So I'm actually really excited to see him coming back going into 2021. So, I don't know how this team is going to fill out. Just being able to make it to the grand finals in the first place was, I mean, honestly, just a huge blessing in itself due to the meta shift that really worked out in the Dynasty's favor, since Gesture, uh, by and large, went unpunished on the Roadhog for an extensive amount of time there. And then, you had playoff profits, and then Fitz picking up whatever was left over with the scraps. So all in all, like, you got a good core to build around. But is this team going to be able to improve off of the regular season? Because that was the team that was 50-50 throughout 2020. And, they kind of lucked out with the playoff patch, where, they just pulled off upset after upset and even took who were perceived to be like the top teams in each region, to their limits or to a map 5 on multiple occasions there.
Yeah. Yeah, I just part of me thinks that they're just going to bring in some people that we just don't really know about from Korean contenders. That's what they're going to do. And the thing is like, you and me both, we don't really know. We haven't been following Korean contenders like we previously would.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I wouldn't bring back any of them.
Well, luckily, like these next, I would say, I'm trying to remember like when the deadline was for the minimum. I think it was like early January was when you needed 7
January
players
4th.
Signed to contracts for the 2021 season. So, we'll have a very good picture within like the next 2 months of where all these teams are going to land. Now, there are a handful of teams out there that have already kind of like weighed the contract statuses that were basically going to be expiring or, just done with outright. Dragons are one of those teams. So there's a lot of knowns already here. So signed to the team for the 2021 season, you have the DPS lineup of Fleta and Lip. They have both of their main tanks signed in Fearless and Stand 1. Void is returning for their off tank. And then you have a support lineup. At Flex, you have Izayaki. Main support, you have Lee Jae-gon, which means that they have gotten rid of DPS Dia, Dane, and DM. Off tank Geguri, as well as Flex support Luffy. So quite a bit of releases here. Like, part of me is always gonna feel bittersweet if we don't ever get Carpe DM on a team again. But I feel like out of everyone, he's probably gonna have an easier time finding a new home.
Yeah. And that's if they don't like redo a contract. Because just because they said, we want to thank them for this time and stuff like that, doesn't mean they won't be re-signed. Case in point, Logix. Because he got that message from Toronto, and Toronto brought him back.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he could go there. He could go to Philly, because they got rid of like all their DPS. And but I still think he might re-sign with Shanghai. Outside chance he finds his way over to, like, I don't know, Justice, like maybe New York. So I don't know. But even if they don't bring back DM, they basically have every starter
Mm-hmm.
back from a very, very good team last year. So, maybe they think that, Fleta and Lip, and if they bring somebody else in, can get the job done. So we'll see. Maybe they get Glister or something like that.
I know we already have seen crazier things happen, but we'll get to that. We're gonna hold off on the Dallas talk until a little bit later. All right. So Ed, why don't you go ahead and take the Valiant? Let's see what's going on over in LA.
All right. So the ones they've kept: KSP, Shax, Dreamer, Lastro, and Rain. Okay, so we got 2 support, a tank, and 2 DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They got rid of Apply, McGravy, and Gig. And the unknown is KSF. So yeah, I don't know what direction they're gonna go in here. Are the Valiant gonna spend money, or are they gonna go budget again?
Yeah, and this is a team too who when we were kind of doing like our rankings at the start of the 2020 season, a lot of us were just like, there's like so many unknowns on this team, and it definitely played a factor in where we had to rank them. We didn't have like the highest expectations, and London was like another team that was in a similar boat there, probably to like a more severe extent. But this is a team who showed a little bit of polish. I think the DPS was probably the brightest spot in regards to their roster, really across the board there. And it did seem like as the season went along, the ball really did start to get rolling there. But at that point, it was just, there was too much ground to make up, and they didn't quite deliver when we got to, like, the prize pool tournaments or even going into the playoffs. So, like, for all of the doubt that kind of surrounded this team going into 2020, I think they passed, maybe not necessarily with, like, flying colors, but they were still, like, middle of the pack, which, based off of how some of these teams did this season, that's passable.
Yeah, no, they surprised a lot of people, and a lot of that actually rests on KSF. He was definitely one of the fan favorites. One of the fan favorites who is really good. Not, McGravy. But yeah, they have their support team. They have their main tank. I don't know what they're gonna do. Or if they're just gonna bring in all new, like bring in 6, 7 brand new people. I don't see them re-signing KSF.
Okay.
I see him getting lowballed by them maybe a little and just getting a better offer somewhere else. So like he could easily go to maybe the Titans or any plethora of teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting. I was pleasantly surprised with the Valiant this year.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the Spark. This is another team that's been on our radar, who we own jerseys for. A lot of things happening on the Spark front. So I'm going to go over who they have gotten rid of so far, and they've gotten rid of Otto, Adora, Rhea, Assassin, and Bebe. That's a pretty healthy chunk there. So kept on contract, we have Architect and Godsby at DPS. You have Gushue and QOQ for your tank line, with your supports being IDK, Coldest, and Mika. Alright, so, like, the Spark were definitely a team who relied definitely a lot more on Bebe than kind of like some of their call-ups that they had from Billy Gaming this past
Hmm.
season. So it's essentially a little bit of a change of the guard moment here, where potentially we are going to be seeing, their recent call-ups getting more of an opportunity in this next season. Uh, I'm not surprised to see Gooseray being brought back. I mean, he is, the Winston God.
Hmm.
And, for the most part, like, anytime an ex-runaway player is get an opportunity to play, I'm gonna be happy.
Yeah.
And QOQ and Rhea were kind of like going back and forth this past season. So like, I think QOQ definitely earned his spot on this roster, and I still don't quite know what to make of Architect on this team. This
Like he
is
doesn't fit the play style.
I don't know if it's that, or if he just had a better supporting cast on his prior teams that helped him pop off more. I feel like he just hasn't quite been able to get let off his leash, so to
Mm.
speak, on the Spark team here.
Yeah, it's. I mean, the talent is obviously there. Like we know the talent is there for Architect. I mean, I think this is like if I was to put money down on one of the teams, this most likely being like who they have now is their starting lineup, it would probably go to the Spark for next year. Um, so yeah, I see Bebe being gone, like going to another team, which should be easy for him. But Architect and Godsby, I still have hope that this duo is going to just start dominating. Because individually, I love both those players, but
Mhm.
they just not didn't mesh that well.
Yeah, it was unfortunate too because like even like during the season, now there was kind of that ongoing debate about whether or not the Spark had Dynasty's number, because the Dynasty had really struggled with this team throughout the seasons, and the script was just flipped on its head this
Mhm.
past season. So Spark for a while there kind of just got lost in the shuffle in APAC, which was definitely a shame to see. Now moving back to LA, some very curious things have happened on the Gladiators here. We only have 4 players currently on the roster, 3 of which are on the DPS line? Question mark? Because one of them played Zarya quite a bit, so like I don't know
Mhm.
quite what to make of that. But basically, you have Birdring, you have Kevster, Mirror, and Space. Gone are Jaru, Bishu, LH Cloudy, OGE, and the Finnish support duo of Big Goose and Shaz. And I know there's been a ton of retirements. You've also had a
Mhm.
lot of people uh jumping into the Valorant Pro scene after they found the bench for quite a bit of this past season of the Overwatch League. But man, this was a team who we constantly praise the organization and just the way that they ran business, and they were one of the more consistent teams when it came to overall performance. Then we enter 2020, and this team just kind of looked lost. Like, they did not live up to the expectations that we put on them. I'm
Mm-mm.
sure it's the same, like, for the expectations that they had put on themselves. They didn't see that same sort of success that we saw from them in every other Overwatch League season. And, if you're looking at the roster here, Ed, if you only have a couple of players, this is basically like the reset button getting pushed on the
Yep.
Gladiators
That's
front.
this is essentially a rebuild. Um, you had the luxury of having a great support lineup for 3 years. But now you got to completely redo that. You need to, you honestly, they probably couldn't get out of Space's contract. I don't know if they wanted to stay on it or not, but they probably couldn't get out of it. Um, So like he's still there. Birdring they probably got on a deal, and Birdring was really good for them. And Kevster and Mirror they probably paid almost nothing to. So I'm totally seeing a full rebuild this year. Um, so you know, I have no idea what they plan on going for or anything like that. So this is definitely one of the mystery teams of the off season for right now, because we literally have zero clue.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like another team that's kind of in that same boat, just because of the position that they found themselves in this past season. The Vancouver Titans.
Yep.
This is a team who basically got signed basically really quickly after
They signed an emergency team.
basically. And looking at this, and we've got half present, half gone. So what's going on with the Titans?
All right, so who you have is Dalton, Shredlock, and Wolf. Who you don't have is Suna, KSA, Car, and the one we don't know is Shockwave. So, and he was probably arguably their best player.
I would say so. It's interesting because when you look at this, okay, they kept the DPS, they kept the tank, and a support. That's also what they got rid of. So they're right down the middle.
And it like you had said, they basically threw a team together. They're just like, oh shit, we need a team for next week. Who can we sign? So this is another one where you just throw your hands in the air. Like, I have no idea what they're. I don't know if they want to spend money or if they don't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just don't know.
All right. So we got two more teams to talk about. One of them probably has the most unknowns at this time due to the fact that they've been fairly quiet. And by fairly quiet, I mean, not a damn peep out of this team, right? We have the Chengdu Hunters, who are on the hunt for I don't know what. Because I'm seeing basically the entirety of the roster, and more than half of them have contracts expiring. So, what is known right now on the Hunters side? Gone are Bacon Jack, Atine, and Lanesa. And then on the roster, we have Leave, who, I'm going to be excited for no matter what. That kid pops off time and time again. And then we have Molly. And then we have contracts expiring for Jinmu, the Giga Chad himself, Main, Elsa, Leityan, Kyo, and Yveltal. So it's like, well, there's more than half of your roster. More so than what's actually known at this time. I can't make heads or tails of this. We've seen Jinmu. I don't think he's been a bad pairing with Leave. But I really feel like out of the majority of the players in the Overwatch League, the role lock probably impacted Jinmu more so than any other DPS player that we have seen. In regards to, overall play impact. I'm not talking about, someone getting, perma-benched all the time, but someone who has still been seen play.
Yeah, it's... I mean, in my mind, yes, the only reason that the Chengdu Hunters, I think, are popular was because they were the anti-goats. And people fell in love with them for that. That's the only reason. The thing is they weren't good teams. They really haven't had a good team since they came in. They had fun teams, but not good teams. So you know what? I'm not going to say they shouldn't bring back any of them. Maybe they bring back one or two, but I think this is another full rebuild, kind of like the Gladiators. I don't think you bring back Jinmu. I do not think you go near Ameng. Just because you're so limited. Why didn't they play goats? Because they didn't even have a tank who could play Reinhardt.
Yeah, I feel like in Main's case, his positioning would be more as a control specialist. And I don't know if he has a spot outside of that.
So I think the Hunters need to go for the full rebuild.
Okay.
It'd be the smart move.
Mm-hmm.
But we never know. They could just re-sign all of them and just be crappy again next year.
I don't know. We've seen some wonky things already, but there has been one team out there who's probably had the most intriguing offseason out of all of them. Now, I'll be honest, Ed, we've kind of seen this before. This team makes moves going into the new season. They have a rough start. You know, they show some signs of potential. They miss the playoffs. And then it just resets the cycle all over again. Right?
Mhm.
Like, of course, I'm talking about the Dallas Fuel. Okay. So the easiest way to do this, Ed, let's talk about the individual, and yes, I said individual, who they kept on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one person, Ed. Who was that?
It's Doa. They kept no one else.
So, gone are AKM, Onigod, Gamzu, Note, Trill, Closer, Crimzo, Paintbrush, and Unco. And now, I'll be honest, Ed. There's one name in here that flabbergasted me that got released. And based off of overall performance, whether you're talking fantasy, whether you're talking about just roll-on support, I'm just like, what the F is this team doing? And then there's these other things happening beneath the surface that we didn't even know about, and now all of a sudden, like...
Makes complete sense.
We're like, I don't know what to think.
Okay, so before we go over what they've actually done, of the formers, so AKM retired. Onigod, do you think he ends up on another team?
Yes.
Okay, Gamsu retired to go back to the League of Legends. Note? I don't think so.
I think Note's time has passed at this point. He just hasn't looked comfortable on secondary heroes at all, and I don't think his diva has necessarily been up to par against the competition.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So Trill retired. Closure and Crimzo. I assume they'll both be signed somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Paintbrush.
I mean, that's an in-game leader. Could it be a vital tool?
Yep. I'm going 50-50 for Paintbrush. And then Uncle retired. So there you go. A lot of people just said F it and retired. But then beneath the surface, what did they do?
They're like, hey, Paris, that's a nice roster you got over there. Yoink.
I'd be like, oh, I like your head coach too. Yoink.
Yeah, so they're like, all right, guys, like, you know, we have Doha. And they're probably like, Doha, you know, I'm really sorry that you're the sole survivor. Like, you know, we're gonna build around you, right? Okay. He's like, okay. So, all right, who do you want to play with? And he's like, you know, we had this pretty good team. Element Mystic, you know, a lot of those guys are on a different team right now, under contract. But, you know, if we throw enough money at him, you know, we could probably work out a deal. And then all of a sudden, like, we got Hanbin going from Paris over to the Dallas Fuel. And I was like, oh, interesting. Tell me more. And then a day later, they're like, you know what? We're not stopping there. Sparkle is also coming with over to the Dallas field. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Hold the effing phone. What is going on? And I was like, okay, now you've got my attention. But then, there was still part of me. There was that cynic in me, Ed. That, I looked at that and I was like, that's great. You have half of the Element Mystic core. But what about their head coach? What about that supporting staff that knows these players better than anyone else? What about Rush? And then before I know it, Rush is being announced as the new coach for the Dallas Fuel. And then my mind, man, in that moment, I was like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen after this, but they're definitely turning heads at this point. And they didn't stop there, because we also got 2 more sign-ins outside of that, which, I'll be honest, these were not ones that I was expecting. I was expecting more sign-ins out of players that had played underneath Rush in Contenders Korea. But one of these players had a really great season on Ana despite ping differentials. And another one got to escape. Well, I don't want to say escape yet, right? It's another Texas team.
True.
So we don't know yet. This could just be another case of, Dallas versus Fuel going into 2021. But we got 2 support sign-ins. Now, it's important to note here, both of the sign-ins are at flex support, so they do not have a main support on this roster as of yet.
There's a heavy rumor of one, though. Can you guess from what team?
Okay, let's see here. Well, I know people really wanted MCD to sign, but then they already signed 2 flex support, so I was like, well, it can't be the Element Mystic flex support. So, okay, free agents that are main support. Okay. So if I'm trying to put together the best possible team and bring someone on who has worked with Korean talent time and time again, I would throw as much effing money at Moth to get him to come over to Dallas. And I know people have already made the parody account, GIF and everything. But he would definitely be the first name that would come to mind for me personally.
So, all right, I wasn't thinking Moth. I was thinking of a former Element Mystic main support.
Okay.
That is a free agent from the other side of the state. Jexe. There's so many ways, but I'm just it fits the bill. He was on Element Mystics as their main support, and they're putting together an Element Mystic team.
Yeah, the only other main support that I can remember on what Element Mystic was Undine. I'm trying to think. I don't know if that lined up when Rush was there, but I think Jexe would be the better option out of those 2 in particular.
Yeah. And there's also a chance that they just are going to sign somebody from Korea we just don't know about. It's possible. So, I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. I think the most important thing now is figuring out what they're going to do for their main tank, and main support, and probably need to bring in another DPS. So definitely they're definitely throwing money at things.
Yeah, and we kind of had this conversation on our Discord after the Hanbin and the Sparkle trade. And there was this debate about where we would put Dallas in regards to if they're spending or if they're not spending. And I was like, well, those two signings kind of already lean in one particular direction already.
Mm-hmm.
But last time we saw Dallas throwing out bags of dollars, signing all these big names, they shit the bed.
Yes, they did.
And there's always gonna be that part of me, and really any fan of the Dallas Fuel that are like, there's that seed of doubt that is always present. And I was talking to Spider about it. We're like, I would not be surprised if they find a way to F this up. And Spider's just like, I know. But Rush coming with helped alleviate that feeling a bit. And I completely understand that viewpoint, and I don't know if I'm fully on board the Element Mystic hype train as of yet on the Dallas Fuel. I want to see if the other sign-ins are going to be up to the overall standards of what they have already done so far with their moves. But Side Infielder and Repel, both very solid choices at flex support.
Yep.
And I'm just anxious to see what direction they're going to go into next. But it's just like, this is the season that the Dallas fans were basically waiting for, because they came out of the gate with very lofty contracts for an extensive amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
And now those contracts are up, they can move on, they can look to rebuild, and, will they follow the Empire's success in Dallas? I don't know, but
I say they're off to a good start, though.
They have a strong foundation so far. But, they could be building that foundation in mud.
Yes.
Or
they very well could.
Or on the hill, near the cliff.
Yes.
Where a strong wind can just knock it over.
They're teetering. They're teetering. But I like what they've done so far.
Absolutely. So a lot of moving pieces already. I think at some point, kind of go through the free agents. Obviously, the ones that aren't retired, so we can maybe have a pull list, so to speak, for when we do this again in 2 weeks, to see if we could find a good marriage, so to speak.
Yeah, I get what
for
you mean.
sign-ins. But just as an update, guys, next week is an off week for us. No Heroes Never Die, no Tavern Tales on our end. I'll be in Vegas. I'm sure they're still gonna be planning on doing Overwatch League Network, but I'm not gonna be home to edit that. So I don't know if I'll just tell Booger to hey, export it to YouTube, and then I'll deal with it later, or what the case is gonna be there. But of course, stay glued to the Twitter, all that good stuff, for when they're gonna record their next episode. But obviously, they're also going to be talking about, free agency sign-ins, all that good stuff on a more frequent basis, compared to our show in particular.
Yes.
But that is basically everything in the Pacific, in a nutshell so far. Obviously, still more to come. Couple of months worth of really announcements. And, that pretty much wraps it up for us here tonight. So, I think it's time we call this one.
All
right, so if you guys want to help us out, please do us a solid. Head on over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing, if there is anything you would like to see us incorporate into the show. It's hard to even fathom, and we're at 225 at this point.
It's insane.
That's absolute insanity, which makes sense given that there's madness at the Dark Moon Fair coming up, so kind of ties hand in hand. But anyways, If you want to support our network, you can do so via our Patreon, where we have tiers starting at just $1 a month. You can find more info at patreon.com/OWL Network, where you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Daniel, Owl, and Kesha, in helping our network grow. And of course, if you are looking to contact us, you can do so a number of different ways. So, Edinar, please let our listeners know how they can do just that.
Right. So you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. We are on Twitter, and that's at hndoverwatch. We do have a website that you can go to. That's owrecall.com. We do have YouTube at youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. You can join us on our Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. We do stream the show live on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show. So we are a Twitch affiliate, so you can help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. Our podcast network does stream pretty regularly. So we have the Overwatch League Network, airs Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific. We have Tavern Tales, a Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast Totem and I do on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And that's over at twitch.tv/TavernTalesHS. We are not doing OWL by the numbers because there is no season right now. And then we have this show, Heroes Never Die, which airs Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can catch me personally on Twitter, and that's at Edinar83, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Edinar. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at TumblyDrunk, as well as Twitch at twitch.tv/TumblyDrunk. And before we wrap up tonight, there's kind of an important thing coming up in regards to a certain, series coming back that, you may or may not have a podcast for.
Yes. I am also doing a limited series about The Mandalorian called The Clan of Three. We just did our 2 recap episodes of season 1. I'm excited for the show to come out this Friday. So we can watch it and see if we get to see live action Ahsoka and Ezra and Sabine and Boba Fett and all those fun people. So yeah, go check that out. Clan of Three. It's a Mash Those Buttons production, and yeah, it's on everything that you normally would listen to.
All right. Well, with that being said, guys, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight for another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode 225, and we'll see you guys back in 2 weeks. You take care and have a good night.
Peace out.